I'm actually doing something that I've never done in my life. My first job in sales. I'm carrying a 30-pound briefcase up and down skyscrapers in downtown Manhattan. It was literally like 17 fire hoses all at once. Fintechs, whomever it may be, it's a free billboard.
Any major shift you have seen over the years?
That's the interesting thing about this. Everything changes all the time. It's very exciting. For the last 10 years, right, everybody has been saying, oh, we're going to be getting rid of plastic. And there's just more and more and more. They come in expecting Amazon delivery. Parts, right? They expect that.
Any advice for people who are thinking of to launch a credit card right now in the US?
Understand, please understand.
Hi, Jeff. How are you doing?
I'm great, Frank. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for being on my show.
Thanks for asking me.
Great. So, for our audiences who don't know you yet, could you give us a quick introduction about who you are, what do you do?
Sure. So, my name is Jeff Schultz. I have been in the card payment space since 1995, and really I've been in a particular niche, which is really different than most people think when they think payment space. I've been in the card manufacturing and daily fulfillment space for a very long time. It's almost like I've been doing this since plastic was invented, but that's not true. But it's been a long time, and what I do is I assist clients who are looking to issue cards, and whether it's a bank, whether it's a credit union, large, small, indifferent, it doesn't make a difference. But I also work with fintechs, helping them, manage through what they don't know, right? Specifically, fintechs are the people who run fintechs are brilliant people, but who on earth knows how to issue a card, or knows, what the difference between the different ink colors are, or, what happens with the postal rates, when you put too much in an envelope. So I try to guide gently and offer my suggestions.
How did you get into this industry?
I actually had a background in printing. So years and years ago, my first job in sales was actually carrying a 30-pound briefcase up and down skyscrapers in downtown Manhattan, selling computer supplies and printing for a small print shop in Midtown Manhattan. And you could go up to the top of a skyscraper. That's when you could do that back then, and literally knock on every single door, and either have somebody open it and say, "Oh, come on in," or get it, shoved back in your face. So, I over those years that I did it was in the late 80s, really learned a tremendous amount about printing in particular, and moved into another area of printing prior to card manufacturing. I was actually reached out by, in 1995, by a company called Card Tech. The owner of the company's name is Ozzie Schindler. He actually had this company started, a small card manufacturing facility that I started with him. And I knew printing. I didn't know cards. I didn't know the payment industry. I didn't know any of that. Card Tech was ultimately bought by G&D in 1999. So that's where the beginning of G&D in the US was begun. So I learned a tremendous amount in those early years. They just said, here's a car and go out and find business. And I said, okay.
For people not familiar with the card manufacturing market in the US, could you give us a quick overview of the market?
The major players, the largest organizations in the industry right now are global organizations, which include G&D, which include Callis, Ademia, right? When you think of global reach, these are the companies that you think of in the industry. Very large organizations with very driven market demands, typically larger clients, maintaining a lot of business with these clients. Then you have the next level, which are maybe US specific, which includes CPI or Perfect Plastics, ProTech, and AB Corp, folks like the MTNL, folks like that. Everybody is a wonderful company. Every company is a very strong company. They have their strengths, and every company has their weaknesses, but it's a well-rounded industry. Not a lot of card manufacturers in the world, which makes sense, right? Because when I say card manufacturers, I mean secure card manufacturers, making Visa, MasterCard, Discover, or American Express cards. Because you need to have specific guidelines to be able to do that. So there are some companies that just have manufacturing, some companies that just have personalization, but many have a combination.
Any major shift you have seen over the years?
That's the interesting thing about this industry. Everything changes all the time. It's very exciting. So, I mean, starting from, when I first started, it was just mag stripe cards, right? But then you started getting into, fancy designs, and people wanted, marketing companies were determining, from banks were determining that, we want to associate ourselves with, better designs, which will draw people into wanting our bank. This is a very simple time, right? Back in the 90s or whatever. Then, of course, we had starting moves over with co-branding, whether it's like a Sears or a GM or something to that extent, or maybe a university or alma mater or something to that extent. So you started growing that. And of course, those are all magnetic stripe cards, right? And of course, EMV started, let me rephrase it, chip cards started making their way into the thought process. And in the late 90s, very 2000s, the large European manufacturers decided they wanted to have a bigger footprint in the US. So that's when they started actually gobbling up other card manufacturers in the US, thinking that EMV was going to happen just, like that, but it didn't, right? It took many, many years for that to happen. But in the meantime, so many things have changed in from materials, whether it was oils or whether, using foils, or whether using recycled plastics, or whether you're using different type of chips with different inlays or and of course, metal, myriad of things. It constantly changes and it keeps things exciting.
Are there any particular challenges when you are in such a rapidly changing market, talking to different players?
So the challenges really range from, yes, I really want that, I'm interested in this. But a lot of times when people see the cost of something that is new, they don't want to be involved with that. For example, when EMV first started, a lot of the tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 banks, of course, look at it and go, oh my God, this is such an expense. Of course, they had to fold into this and they had to get into that. But, when you start looking at issuers who want to do something special, biometrics, maybe use a biometric fingerprint sensor on a card, which is a fine idea, or maybe use, LED lights on a card, which would be absolutely the coolest thing. You tap a card on the reader and it lights up or does something to that extent. Great ideas, but a lot of these don't want to be the first time issuers to do this because there's cost involved. Since COVID, there were always these inventory issues. In 2020 it wasn't so bad, but all of a sudden, when there's supply chain issues with chips, even with PVC, a lot of people don't know, there were severe limitations on PVC in the industry, which is the core of making a card. So what has happened over the last year, 2022, as inventories began to become more flourishing, more, people were able to actually, bring in more inventory, the biggest banks, and then it started coming down, started ordering ungodly amounts of inventory because they never wanted to get into that position again. God forbid they didn't have chips again. It was just an incredible time. So those are the things that, have been really the most difficult things to overcome. When it comes to a cost perspective, people need to understand that everything is going up in price and it needs to be, explained why. And especially if you want to do something new and different, there's going to be a cost associated. And a lot of fintechs don't understand. They want to be the coolest thing out there. But when you finally present what it looks like and, what it's going to cost, then it gets to be a little bit difficult. But that's okay. That's just the nature of the beast.
What do you see the future of a credit card? You think it's really the physical plastic cards is going to disappear, or where it's going?
That's a great question. For the last 10 years, right, everybody has been saying, oh, we're going to be getting rid of plastic. And there's just more and more and more cards out there, right? Which is, thank goodness for our industry that it's been like that. Thankfully, that hasn't happened yet. I will say, though, with the advent, of course, with digital wallets, with the advent of, peer-to-peer payments and things like that, there is a challenge. However, somebody having a physical, it doesn't even have to be a card, but having something physical in their hand means something to most people. Still, what's that going to mean in 10 years? I don't know. I'd like to think that it's still going to be a very viable means of payment. When you think about that, for financial institutions and for fintechs, whomever it may be, it's a free billboard, right? If you think about it, somebody pulls out their card at wherever it might be, whatever merchant, and it says thank bank, right? It's advertising. Somebody's short a glance or whatever. Somebody else might see your card and it just registers. So it's still an extremely viable product for the market.
People really like something physical, right? It's something they can touch and feel. So we'll never get rid of that. Yeah. So over the years, with all the different financial players, what are some of the mistakes you have observed when they launch a brand new credit card programs?
So you have to divide that into two spaces. One, traditional financial institutions, FIs, and fintechs. Typically, financial institutions are going to have, especially larger ones, very in-depth marketing experience, understanding, what their target markets are for specific products, and that, okay, we're going to need this much, or we think we're going to need this much to order. And one thing I've seen several times in my years is a lot of times they under order, and all of a sudden they get so successful that they're scrambling, and they say, okay, Jeff, I need another X number of cards. And you're like, when can you get it delivered? And you're like, but wait a minute. And we've been talking, and it's funny because I'm big on talking with people you may understand and try to understand where things are with them and analyzing and try to forecast and always listening. And even though we may have these conversations, they're still not realizing all of a sudden the amount of people who are wanting their card. And then all of a sudden it's a rush. Oh my God, that, typically it could be 4 to 6 weeks or 4 to 8 weeks for card manufacturing, right? Because you have to get into production schedules. And all of a sudden they need them, but they need 500,000 by next week. It's like, yeah. So those are some of the things that are issues with launching new products with FIs. When it comes to fintechs, and I touched on this earlier, the leaders of fintechs who, again, are brilliant people, just brilliant. There's no reason why they would understand how to manufacture. Or why would you need to understand that? Why would somebody with a Stanford degree or something from MIT why would they need to understand what the difference of a 2.5 mil laminate or something else, a different ink? A lot of things that they come in, especially the young folks, and I think it's great. They come in expecting Amazon delivery cards, right? They expect that, and it doesn't happen like that. And that's why from the very beginning, when I have conversations with fintech, literally from the very beginning, I set expectations really right from the beginning. And what's really very funny is to see, we're going to issue 500,000. We're going to, by the end of first year, we're going to, fintechs especially, we're going to issue, our forecasting shows 1.5 million by the end of year one. And I'm like, really? Okay, let's really dive, pull that back and understand how you got to those numbers. And it kind of, gets things into focus. So those are the things that you might want to, I like to have up front and make sure we all understand.
Yeah, definitely. That planning is very important. How do you see your line of work, the biggest value you provide to your clients?
I speak with my clients as if I'm just a consultant. If I'm looking at a company, for example, who's card manufacturing or doing something else, and I can't do something, I'm going to refer them. I'm going to try to exhaust everything that I can to help them. But if I can't, I'm going to say, look, let's discuss how we can help you. And I'll direct them and I'll provide them the right context. We all know each other in the industry, right? It's a small industry, really. And what I'll, be able to do, it's really consultative way of working is what I do. That's how I do. And I, to my detriment, for many times in my life, I'm the biggest advocate for my clients. And when I say to my detriment, my companies don't terribly like that all the time, but I look at it as if I can help my clients, it's going to help me and my company in the long run. So why not be their biggest advocate?
Looking at the recent 3 years with the pandemic, does that impact the way you interact with your clients in any way?
Well, yeah. So it's interesting. So in 2020, my career changed slightly, and I got out of hard manufacturing specifically, and I worked with Fiserv, which is a wonderful company. And I worked with a very small group launching what you might call their fintech division, right? Very small group. And we battled windmills within the organization itself, right? And it was very interesting to watch. However, as soon as things started happening in March of 2020, I ended up sitting in front of my computer more than I ever have in my entire life. I've been on more video calls than I've ever been in my life. And the interesting thing about that is I was not just understanding now video calls far more than I was, but in the past, but I was learning more about the payment space. I was working out and, working with people and helping them with surcharge ATM network, surcharge free ATM network that Fiserv owned, right? I worked, all the way up to, the myriad of products, all the way up to full-blown credit card processing. It was literally like lighting from 17 fire hoses all at once and moving from one Teams meeting literally to the next Teams meeting as soon as, always coming in 5 or 10 minutes late because you're over, right? So 2020 was incredible. It was incredible. Would I take it back? No, I wouldn't, because not only did I learn so much about Fiserv and about stuff I didn't know within the industry, it was remarkable. Whereas if I had been doing it on a regular basis, like regular time, I would have been taking a day to fly up to California, or I would have been traveling, or, so there was a tremendous amount of time compressed into that time. Now, things have gotten better, of course, so it's much easier to travel, and it's much easier to, thank goodness, to see clients. And honest to God, we could sit here on a Teams call or Zoom or something. It's not the same as being face to face, shaking somebody's hand, seeing what their, reactions are, and seeing, even micro reactions, and see if I can pick something up and offer them any advice. So thank goodness it's gotten better.
Good to know that there are efficiency enhancements through the situation, but again, it doesn't replace the in-person interaction.
Human element, yeah, it's true.
Can you tell us a little bit about your family?
Been married to my wife for 35 years. We have 2 sons, one almost 29, like in another week or two, another 25. Real proud of both of these boys, tremendous boys. Yeah, I couldn't be more proud of my sons and my wife and where we are. So we're down in southeast Pennsylvania, just below Philadelphia, above Wilmington, in this beautiful area called the Brandywine Valley. It's very pretty here.
Great. So with your busy schedule at work, how do you handle the work-life balance over the years?
So, it's interesting. I have not worked out of an office, Frank, a formal office, like had a desk and a chair, right, since 1992. So I've been in sales. I've expected to be on the road, whether I'm working for a company in Manhattan or a company that's out in California or somewhere else. I was never expected to have a desk somewhere. So, this whole work from home thing was just another day for me, right? But the work-life balance has been managing for almost 3 decades at this point, or more, because one of the things is I learned that I never worked 9 to 5. It's a 24-hour day, right? Especially if you have clients in different time zones, right? So one thing I'm incredibly proud of is when my sons were young, I was able to coach them in baseball or other sports and be part of their lives. Well, I didn't feel like I missed anything, right? And still take care of the yard and still take care of the wife and doing everything. So it's the work-life balance was always difficult, but there were more hours that you could work. You could work after 8 o'clock at night. You could work at prior to 7 a.m. It was never an issue for me. I guess it was just one of those things I learned.
Oh, great. Glad to hear you are able to take advantage of this decentralized work mode a long time ago. Good for you and your family.
It's so funny, Frank, because I felt so bad for these families when COVID hit who didn't have an office. I mean, I'm here. I have my own office. Actually, we have a 2.5-car garage, and it's a half portion of the garage that I walled up. And 20 years ago, when we moved in here, this is where I work. I felt so bad when I, heard about, they're working at the dining room table, the kids are screaming and all this stuff. I felt so bad about that, but I said, I was just used to that and didn't have those limitations for so long.
Okay, so that's a smooth transition, or almost no transition for you. In this rapidly evolving environment, how do you stay up to date with the industry?
It's really a daily thing, right? Because things change so fast and so frequently. So, the biggest thing is I'll be looking at newsletters all the time. LinkedIn is just a tremendous tool. You give some incredible insight on credit. It's incredible, which is wonderful. But there are other folks out there, Jason Poole, Marshall, a whole bunch of folks out there. Incredible information. These people are brilliant. And I don't know how they generate all this information on a daily basis. It's incredible and how they get it out in time. And it's wonderful that we have this at our fingertips. So this is how I stay on top of most everything. There's so many different articles, whether it's TechCrunch or whatever it might be, that Wall Street Journal. That's incredible information as well. It's not like the old days where you got a Nielsen report on a monthly basis, and you look at it. Oh, that's what happened. Not like that. You can't do that anymore.
So there are definitely a lot of different sources. I'm glad I'm doing my part.
And tell you.
No problem. My pleasure. What's next for you? So any specific professional and personal goals for you in 2024?
Yep, just continue, assisting clients, working with folks and seeing how I can help them from a professional standpoint. From a personal standpoint, I'm actually doing something that I've never done in my life. It's in 2 weeks. I'm a drummer, by the way, and I'm in a couple of bands. One is a classic rock band. I'm actually singing, and I've never done that before. So I'm actually doing 2 songs. So I'd like to do more of that next year. So it's going to be interesting.
Oh, good for you. Always challenge yourself.
Right.
So what songs you are going to sing, like Hotel California or?
So the 2 songs that I'm actually going to be singing in a couple of weeks is going to be Boys of Summer by Don Henley, and there's another song called Two Princes by Simple Minds, and Spin Dot in part. So those are the 2 songs. So we have some good range in our band, and folks. We didn't have somebody who could sing these songs, and it just opens up our the options that we can play on.
Where your band will be performing?
Actually, that in Wilmington, Delaware, is where we are.
Okay, so if people you are in the area want to
That's right.
Enjoy some music, check it out. Great. So,
Frank, that's why I always have. I have a pair of sticks that are always banging.
Okay. I'd love to see your performance someday. So,
And you get better with singing.
Great. Any advice for people who are thinking of to launch a credit card right now in the U.S.?
Please understand, there are so many governmental, PCI, Visa, MasterCard regulations, banking regulations that you have to get through to get to this point. You need to have a lot of money in the bank to start issuing a program. You don't have $1 million on the outset. That's only going to get you for about 6 months, quite frankly. You need to learn who all the players are, whether it's a part manufacturer or part personalization facility. You need to learn Visa and MasterCard. You need to learn the banks, determine which banks are certainly processors who you need to work with. Now, of course, there are, banking as a service companies who will help you with this, which is wonderful to be able to do something like that. So, if you want to be able to work with them and try to pair that, that's great. But understand and be prepared that your expectations need to be set properly on when you expect to see any type of return, or even when you expect to launch. And one of the things I've learned, Frank, is if you say you're going to launch in 6 months, 9 months, always add 3 more months, because something is going to happen, whether it's related to, whatever might happen. It could be an investor problem. It could be something with the processor. It could be something with manufacturing. You don't know, but just be prepared and just take a breath and understand it. It'll happen. It'll work. That's really my biggest advice, is to make sure you understand from the beginning that the journey is not a straight line by any stretch of your imagination. But there's a lot of things out there, a lot of areas that you need to learn about.
Great advice. There's never a smooth sailing, as we like. How can people reach you?
Easiest thing to do is honestly my email is jeff.schultz@fintechcard.biz. One word, fintechcard.biz. My company is actually Fintech Card Implementation Strategies, but it became affectionately known as Fintech Card. I also work with other manufacturers, but really the best way to reach me is jeff.schultz@fintechcard.biz.
Today, I'm having a crash course on the card manufacturing. Glad to hear about your experience in the industry and a lot of new things happening. So for anyone who wants to launch a credit card program, explore some new medium of the ever-evolving credit card space, feel free to reach out to Jeff.
That would be great. Thank you, Clay.
Thank you for your time, Jeff. Talk to you later.